What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. We're looking at the Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. We got a 52.5-point total with the Rams as 4.5-point dogs. That is actually a little bit surprising considering all the injuries that the Rams are dealing with, especially on the offensive line. And I think that this game might be a blowout in favor of Detroit. We'll dig into that in a minute. I got a couple captain options that I think we can get a little bit different from the field. We're running hot on captains. We hit Jayden Reed in Friday night's game, and we hit Xavier Worthy in the Chiefs game. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports. You're watching Gamescript. And as I mentioned at the top, we're looking at the Rams at the Lions in this one. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of difficulty for the Rams to overcome in this one. Their offensive line has been basically decimated. Their defense is a lot different than it was last year. They lost their defensive coordinator on top of it. And we're just going to be digging through a bunch of muck, trying to find some usable pieces on that Rams side, which makes me surprised that the total is so high at 52.5, and the Rams are actually within a touchdown as far as the spread. So I'm going to take a look here, and we can try to pick out some of these Rams pieces that we can use in this one. I also like a low-owned captain option on the Detroit side that we can take a look at that I think is going to be in a situation that we like to take advantage of with uncertainty heading into the beginning of the season. And we've capitalized on that with Jayden Reed, especially last night. He had a massive performance against the Eagles. I was very high on him as a captain option. He ended up being the winning captain last night, even though Saquon Barkley gave him a fight. Saquon Barkley actually outscored him by like 0.1 points, and he was a good captain option too. Shout out to Spread for recommending Saquon Barkley yesterday, in addition to what we built in our lineups. That probably, if you watched the show, you made money if you followed the advice. Basically, all our lineups cashed, and especially with those Jayden Reed lineups that I built, I almost won it all last night, but got beat out in the last, I think, quarter of the game when Devontae Smith caught those two passes. So very close last night, but we'll get into this game. This is the game that we're interested in today. I'm going to call up the player pool here. Before I dive in, make sure to hit that like button. Looking for 30 likes so I can put out a shorter video a little bit later on Sunday with my final picks and my final favorite plays, my final captain pick, all that kind of stuff in a YouTube short. I usually put that up a few hours before the game starts. So make sure to hit that like button, get me to 30, and also subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, we've been crushing already with these early games so far. The Chiefs game nailed the Worthy pick. Last night's game nailed the Jayden Reed pick, as I mentioned. So make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of this content. Let's dig in here. Looking at Jared Goff. Jared Goff is in a very favorable matchup against the Rams. The Rams defense is a completely different looking team than it was last year. And Goff did pretty well against them. The last time they played, he ended up, well, maybe not so well. He did 14.78 DraftKings points. But Goff is in a favorable spot in this matchup this week, especially with the Rams missing Donald and just being overall a completely different look with Raheem Morris gone and everything like that. So the defense of the Rams have a lot to sort out, and it's going to be a struggle for them in this one. Matthew Stafford, not as high in Matthew Stafford, even though, he's got a lot of decent weapons, but the problem with Matthew Stafford is he's missing almost his entire offensive line. He had 25 DraftKings points in the last matchup that these teams had, but it's just not looking good for the Rams. Some of the injuries that we're looking at, Jonah Jackson has been hurt all offseason, And this is where it gets a little bit interesting because the Rams offensive line is still a jumble. They're still trying to figure out what their offensive line is. When they brought in Jonah Jackson, they were expecting him to be, like his normal position, but they are going to be using him at center for the first time in his career in this game. And on top of that, he's been hurt all offseason. So he's coming in off being hurt, probably hasn't gotten a lot of reps at center, and he's never played center before, at least not in the NFL. So, it's going to be a struggle for Jonah Jackson in this game. We're looking at the left tackle, Alaric Jackson, who's been suspended. Right tackle, Haverstein, is questionable. On top of that, as far as the weapons, Puka Nacua has been hurt all offseason. So, with all this lack of time to throw, I think this is going to be favorable for Cooper Kupp, who comes in at the third highest priced guy on the slate at 9,600. Cooper Kupp is going to be in a situation where I think Matthew Stafford is going to be relying on him as a safety blanket in this one. His ownership might come in high. I'm seeing on RG, I think they're projecting him around 12%. I don't like that ownership. Hopefully he is projected lower on some of these other sites, but that ownership is not what I like to see for Cooper Kupp, a guy where we're seeing some uncertainty on this team, and I'd like to capitalize on it. But Cooper Kupp makes a solid captain option considering all the situation that the Rams are dealing with on that offense. Stafford going to be looking to get the ball out quick. Cooper Kupp is his safety blanket, as I mentioned. And on top of that, the Lions gave up 22.8 points a game to the slot last year. That was among the highest in the league. So very favorable matchup for Cooper Kupp and a very favorable situation in general. So if we're looking at slot receivers here, Detroit gave up the third most points to slot receivers last season. So that's very favorable, as I mentioned, for Cooper Kupp. So we want to keep him high on our list of players to start this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has a less favorable matchup, but as I mentioned at the top, Rams defense is going to be struggling. It's going to be a struggle for him just in general. As far as what the Rams gave up for slot receivers last year, it was more in the middling area. They were 21st in points allowed to slot receivers at 17.4. So, bottom 10 as far as matchups for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's still the go-to weapon in this offense. But Amon-Ra may want to temper expectations a little bit on this one because I have another receiver that I want to try to game script around that has a better matchup than Amon-Ra and, may have an opportunity to break out here a little bit. We'll get into that in a minute. If we're looking at Puka Nacua, he's been hurt all offseason. Nacua had a breakout season, about 1,400 yards as a rookie, and he had a big game against Detroit in the playoffs, 35.9 points against them. But he was also had a lot of momentum going into that game. He was Matthew Stafford's go-to guy throughout the season last year. Kupp missed the first 4 games with an injury, and he never looked right after that. So look for Puka Nacua maybe to struggle a little bit in this after missing basically the entire preseason and the entire training camp. So hasn't had a lot of reps with Stafford, who's going to be under a lot of pressure and who's going to be lacking time to throw. So that favors Kupp more than Nacua in this one. And in general, I just don't want to have a lot of exposure to these Rams offensive weapons. Goff, talked about him already. Stafford, talked about him. Jahmyr Gibbs is in a situation this year or in this game where we'll take a look at the points allowed to running backs last year by the Rams defense. And both these teams, the Rams and the Lions, both fell in the bottom 3 of points allowed, DraftKings points allowed to running backs. So I don't know how much of how much I favor this matchup for Jahmyr Gibbs, even though I'm expecting the Lions to just run away with this game. So let's take a look at receptions that the Rams were allowing. And I'm seeing the receiving backs had a little bit better matchup than regular running backs, with the Rams giving up about 4 receptions a game to the running back position. So that positions Jahmyr Gibbs to maybe have, like a little bit better of a matchup than David Montgomery in this one. David Montgomery is significantly cheaper, though, and they might decide to just run the air out of the ball after taking a big lead. So I wouldn't rule David Montgomery out. As a matter of fact, I might put him more in play than Gibbs, because I don't think they'll need necessarily Gibbs as much, but Gibbs could, score all his points early in this game and help them to taking a big lead in it. Kyren Williams does not have a good matchup, and he's also got Blake Corum to compete with now for touches. So I might stay away from the Rams side as far as their running backs. But the pressure that Stafford's going to be under, maybe he's dumping off a lot of balls to Kyren Williams and Blake Corum in this one. But Kyren Williams is expensive at $8K, and I don't like the matchup for him. Sam LaPorta does have a good matchup. He didn't do much in their last game against the Rams just because he was hurt. There was a lot of question on whether he would play in that game, but LaPorta was hurt. And in general, it's a good matchup for LaPorta because the Rams are, as far as the fantasy points a game that they're allowing the 7th most, at least last season, 7th most points to the tight end position at 13.5. So good matchup for Sam LaPorta. You take a matchup like that where you're facing off against a team that was one of the worst against tight ends, and you put him in a situation where like all these defensive changes on the team that they're facing, it just puts them in a much better spot. And I think LaPorta will be a good guy for our lineups this week. David Montgomery, covered him. Going to skip past these backup quarterbacks and go to Jameson Williams. I like Jameson Williams a lot. I'm seeing him projected for ownership right now at under 5%, which makes me like him even more. They may decide to unleash him in this matchup, get him off to a hot start this season. As we know with Jameson Williams, these past couple years, he was hurt his rookie year, so he only played a few games there. He was suspended for the beginning of last season, so he missed a good chunk of the season there. So he really hasn't had all that many NFL games, even though he's coming into his 3rd year. But they let Reynolds go in the offseason, which is a good sign for how they're thinking of Jameson Williams coming into his 3rd year. He's healthy. He hasn't gotten in any trouble yet. And he's coming into a situation where he's got just a great matchup. The Rams are more susceptible to wideouts than they are to the slot. So 18 points a game they're allowing to wideouts versus 17.4 to the slot. But I do think that, maybe the Rams want to get Jameson Williams going early this year just so they have this potent offensive weapon. And that puts us in a good spot with his salary being at $5,400 and a lot of uncertainty into how they're going to use him this year. He was going in about the 10th round of underdog drafts this season, maybe between 8th and 10th throughout the offseason. So Jameson Williams, people aren't necessarily onto him, and if he ended up having a breakout season, that'll be good for us if we start him out as a captain option here. Demarcus Robinson, I like Demarcus Robinson. He was looking great at the end of last season. Didn't do too much in the playoff game, but he did have some good weeks towards the end of the season last year, and I like his salary at $5K, so he's going to be in play for us as some salary relief, especially with the matchup's not too bad for him either. Like with Detroit is giving up, they're giving up 15 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, but I do like Demarcus Robinson with the amount of 11 personnel that the Lions use. So keep him in play. as a cheap salary relief option. Blake Corum, not sure how they're going to use him. He didn't get a lot of play in the preseason, which tells us that Sean McVay has a lot of trust in him, and he's going to play a decent role on this offense. So I don't know exactly how he's going to be used, but he's another mystery player at 4,800. So keep him in your player pool as some salary relief. Bates and Carty, the kickers, they're both rookies. So both these teams have, tendencies to go for it on fourth, and if they're dealing with rookie kickers, maybe they have a little bit more tendency to go on for it on fourth in this game. So Bates and Carty, usually I like kickers. I don't like them so much in this one, even though they are playing indoors in this one. So that is favorable for kickers, but I'm still probably going to be using them lighter than I normally would with kickers. All right, so let's go on to defenses. I like the Lions D a lot in this one. They're at 4K. I'm not such a fan of the Rams D at 3,600. As I mentioned, the offensive line is very rough shape for Matthew Stafford, an aging quarterback. So look for them to struggle in this one, and the Lions might just come out of the gates hot. It's going to be loud. It's going to be loud in Detroit. You got a center in Jonah Jackson, who's never played center. It's going to be struggling with the noise. Like, it's just going to be a very rough situation for the Rams in this one. So keep that in mind with these defenses, and Lions make a very good defensive option at 4K. Parkinson, the Lions are almost as bad against the tight end as the Rams, and Parkinson doesn't really have anyone behind him. So he's going to be playing a decent amount, but Stafford, it hasn't traditionally these last couple years targeted tight ends all that much, but Parkinson is in play at 3,200. So keep him in your player pool. And I think really beyond that, I don't think we really need to go too crazy. Whittington, he got some hype in the off season. So he might be a guy that's worth keeping in your player pool at 2K. Beyond that, I don't really see anyone else that I would be interested in as I'm going lower here. That may change, if I do some more digging or whatever and read some beat reports. But really, for dumpster diving, I don't think we need to go too crazy this week. So let's say that we want to build a chalkier lineup. I think a popular, chalkier captain might be Amon-Ra is a little bit expensive. I think Kupp might just be a chalky captain this week. It really depends on what we're seeing for ownership later on, but I'm already seeing him projected at 12%. If I'm looking at the highest owned captains, let's take a look at that real quick. I'm seeing, Cooper Kupp is basically the highest. I've seen Sam LaPorta at 12%. I don't really know if I trust these projections so much, but let's see some other options. I'm seeing like Nacua at 15%. Amon-Ra is at, let's check out Amon-Ra. He's only at 6%. If he's a 6% owned captain, then that makes him interesting. But wait till we see some more solid captain projections before we take a stand like that. But let's put Kupp in there. Let's assume Kupp might be chalky this week. I really like him as a captain, given the circumstances that I already described. I'm not going to put Stafford in there with him, though. I'm going to go with Sam LaPorta, who I like. I'm going to put Amon-Ra in there, and then I'm going to put Jared Goff in there as well. That's going to leave us with 4,100 per guy. Let's get that Detroit defense in here as well. That's going to leave us with 4,200 for a remaining pick. We can get Parkinson in there if we want. We can get Khalif Raymond, like as a random guy, that Whittington play. So you got options down there. If we wanted to take out, maybe we say Amon-Ra we take him out and we put in Montgomery instead. Let's say that they take a big lead and they decide to run the air out of the ball with Montgomery. That leaves us with 8,600. We could put in Gibbs in that situation as well and just go complete Detroit onslaught with Kupp and the captain. I mentioned I liked Jameson Williams, so let's get Jameson Williams in there. 3,200. That leaves us with, if we wanted to take out Montgomery, we could get like a Nacua or Stafford in there. Gibbs, if you wanted to. I just took Gibbs out. Yeah, no, Gibbs you could get in there if you wanted to. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with an onslaught with using Kupp and the captain. I think an onslaught will be a little bit different from the field. If people have Kupp and the captain, a lot of times they're going to want to play Stafford. Maybe they want to play, Kyren Williams and stuff like that. So I think this will get you a little bit different with as far as a onslaught against the Rams this week. Let's clear that out. Let's go with a lower owned guy that I'm projecting, and let's put Jameson Williams in there as captain. See what we can do there. That's going to give us a lot more room to play around. We can get Amon-Ra if we do that, and we want Goff in there if we got two receivers. Maybe we put in Montgomery as mopping things up. We want Kupp in there. That leaves us with 5,700. That gives you options like Demarcus Robinson, Blake Corum, both the kickers, both the defenses. I like the Lions D, as I talked about earlier. If we wanted to get the Lions D in there, let's take out Montgomery, put in the Lions D. Leaves us with 8,300. That puts us in Kyren Williams range, LaPorta range. I mean, that's beautiful right there. But we got two receivers already. So maybe if you wanted to take out Amon-Ra and put in Gibbs or something like that, you could do that too. A lot of things that you can play with in a build like this, but there's just plenty of direction that we can go here. I like Jameson Williams a lot. I like Kupp a lot in this matchup, and I like the Lions D a lot. So those are my three takeaways. If you're going to take anything away from this of who I like, make sure to subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned, get me to 30 likes so I can put out a shorter video, a YouTube short, when we get closer to game time, when I have more complete thoughts on this. I will say, though, I haven't studied the main slate yet. I wanted to put all my focus on this showdown show before anyone else is even thinking about it, so I can get you guys this information before anyone else, and I can get you guys focused information instead of people who are distracted with their main slates. So I haven't even gotten to my main slate yet. I'm giving you guys this information on Saturday afternoon. It's a good time to go through this when I have a fresh perspective without dealing with any mainstream stuff. I'm coming or main slate stuff. I'm coming from two hot showdown calls, and I think that a game like this is setting up very nicely to get a little bit different with our lineup building. So get me to 30 likes, and I'll put out that shorter video on Sunday. And make sure to sign up for an Underdog account using the promo code SEEK. I'm going to be doing some pick'em stuff for Underdog content this year. You're going to want to make sure to use the promo code SEEK, because if you deposit, you can get up to $1,000 bonus match. And that's for new depositors. You're going to have to deposit $2,000 to get $1,000 because it's a 50% deposit match, but you can get up to $1,000 with your first deposit on Underdog using the promo code SEEK. And they also have a ton of good, like pick'em bonuses and stuff like that you can do. So get your money in there, even if you don't want to play a lot of pick'em throughout the off season or throughout the season, and you want to wait until the playoffs to do playoff best ball and stuff. At least get that money, at least get that bonus money in there so you can take advantage of it, because we don't know how long they're going to be offering this $1,000 deposit bonus. So make sure to take advantage of that. Use the promo code SEEK, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure to hit the like button, and we will keep these videos rolling and keep these hot picks going. So thanks, guys, for watching, and good luck.